Great. Well, welcome everyone to the Committee on Taxation. We're going to have public hearings on 8 bills today. We will begin with introductions. We will start with Representative Carmichael.
Good morning, Carmichael from House District 137, which includes, I'm going to do the towns this morning: Amherst, Aurora, Eastbrook, Franklin, Great Pond, Northwest Hancock Unorganized Territory, and part of East Hancock Unorganized Territory, Bradley, Bradford, Edinburgh, Greenbush, LaGrange, Passadumkeag, East Central Penobscot Unorganized Territory, and Beddington, Du Bois, Northfield, Wesley, and part of North Washington Unorganized Territory. And that's why I do counties usually.
That's amazing, Representative Carmichael. That's what, about 20 municipalities or so?
I think Representative Sachs is going to be disappointed she wasn't here.
Yes, most definitely.
We'll have to do that again when she's here. Great. Well, thank you, Representative Collings.
Good morning. I'm Representative Benjamin Collings, House District 42, part of the City of Portland.
Thank you. I don't think Representative Gramlich is here yet, or Representative Hanley. Representative Kryzak.
Good morning. I'm Ted Kryzak. I represent District 20, Acton, Lebanon, and part of Shapley.
Excellent. And Representative Matlack.
Good morning. I'm Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Cree Haven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
All right. Representative Perry, you're on the phone with us, I guess.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Joe Perry. I represent part of Orono and part of Bangor in the main house.
And Representative Sachs is not with us yet. We've got a couple other members that still aren't here, so we'll represent Terry.
Representative Kryzak, maybe?
Oh, he did introduce himself already.
Oh, he did. I'm sorry.
I'll do it again if you want.
I'm scared right now. It's not good. Look at me today. Sorry about that. I'm Representative Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west part of Gorham, and I serve as House Chair.
And I'm Senator Ben Chipman, represent Senate District 27, which is part of the City of Portland, and serve as Senate Chair. With us today, we also have our clerk, Avery Page, as well as Julie Jones, our committee analyst. So we're going to have public hearings on, I believe, 8 bills today. And we will, just to announce the order of the bills, we've had some requests from sponsors to take bills in slightly different order than the way they're listed. So we'll first take up LD 308 and LD 731, both sponsored by Senator Stewart. Following that, we will take up LD 401, LD 506, LD 538, LD 611, LD 435, and we'll finish with LD 23. So unless there's anything else we should announce, Representative Terry, I guess we're ready to start.
I think we're ready to start.
We'll now hear from Senator Stewart, who's going to introduce LD 308. Welcome, Senator Stewart.
Thank you very much, Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to clarify, should I introduce both LD 308 and then introduce LD 731, or just do 308 and then?
I don't have the titles of bills here, so I don't know if they're similar on topic. I assume they probably are, but
they are not.
Okay, then go ahead and introduce LD 308 first, and then we'll, I don't think there's anybody, well, we do have someone to speak on that. So yeah, go ahead, LD 308.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of the Legislature's Taxation Committee. I'm Senator Trey Stewart, and I have the distinction of representing 51 communities in Aroostook and Penobscot counties. And I'm before you today to present LD 308, an act to promote research and development in the state by increasing the marketing and research expense tax credit. When it comes to research and development, Maine is well behind other states. If it weren't for the nonprofit research institutions located here, Maine Technology Institute or research labs at the University of Maine, there would be little R&D happening in our state. This is unfortunate because I believe that despite challenges like an aging workforce, tight labor market, cooler climate, and lagging internet connectivity, Maine actually has a lot of innovative people. In the county, Stardust recently launched a biofuel rocket. GoLab in Belfast and Madison is manufacturing wood fiber into renewable and recyclable home insulation. The University of Maine has teamed up with New England Aquavintas to create floating offshore wind technology. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Mainers were designing, manufacturing, and selling hand sanitizer and face masks. These are just a handful of the things that are currently taking place. While those are all great, private sector R&D is lagging. If Maine is going to continue on for generations to come, we need those in the private sector to stay in Maine and new companies to come to Maine. Their innovation, research, and development is the key to a strong Maine economy and greater job opportunities. To get there, as a state, we must incentivize and market what we can offer those companies. We see this taking place in states where R&D is thriving, such as North Carolina. By equipping the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development with resources to better market our research expense tax credit and other tax credit programs, I believe that we will see an increase in private R&D taking place in Maine, as well as more partnerships between the private sector and the public sector. In addition to providing DECD with greater financial resources for marketing our tax credit programs, this bill also bolsters the credits that are available. The current research expense tax expenditures eligible for the tax credit is 5%. This bill would double it. The maximum amount of the credit that can be claimed would also double in value from $25,000 to $50,000 annually. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent, Senator Stewart. Thank you for that great introduction. Are there any questions from members of the committee? I don't see any. I think we're all set. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again. And so now I don't see any co-sponsors signed up to speak. So we'll take testimony from those in favor. Kate Foy is here to speak in support.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, I am members of the Taxation Committee. My name is Kate Foy. I'm the Legislative Liaison for the Department of Economic and Community Development, and I'm here today to testify in favor of LD 308. Companies that engage in research and development and continually iterate and innovate generally demonstrate greater economic resilience, especially in challenging times, like a global pandemic. The Maine Technology Institute, Maine's publicly funded entity tasked with catalyzing innovation in Maine, attests to the fact that the tech-enabled companies are well-positioned to lead Maine's economic recovery post-pandemic. These technology-based companies make up approximately $65 billion of Maine's gross regional product, which accounts for a full 20% of our gross regional product. This modest proposal to double the research expense tax expenditure eligible for the credit from 5 to 10% and the maximum amount of the credit that may be claimed from $25,000 to $50,000 seems like a reasonable approach in incenting more R&D in Maine and enabling more innovation, a critical priority of Maine's 10-year economic development strategy. Maine's R&D investment lags our regional counterparts and even other states of similar size. Maine has strength in R&D done at nonprofit research institutes like the Jackson Laboratory, Bigelow Labs, and MDI Biological Laboratory, and through the Centers of Excellence within the University of Maine system, but lags dramatically in private sector R&D. This tax credit helps incentivize private sector R&D investment, which can be leveraged through public sector investment like Maine Technology Institute, the Maine Venture Fund, FAME, and other regional and local public sector options. The department does have one suggestion. We would respectfully ask the sponsor to allow for the requested funding for marketing the research expense tax credit to be used to market the other tax credits tax credit programs that Maine has to offer. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions. That was a lot of words for 9:20 in the morning.
Excellent. Well, it's good to see you. Thank you for being with us. Are there any questions?
Yeah, of course.
If we have any questions, but thank you for being with us. I assume you'll be available for the work session if anything
Absolutely.
comes up.
And if anybody needs any additional information about the program or other information from MTI, please let me know and I'll make sure to bring it.
Excellent. Sounds actually Representative Terry might have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I just wanted to make sure that Senator Stewart and Ms. Foy can discuss that last part of her testimony to make the necessary changes if that's amenable to you, Senator Stewart.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Foy and I have already been in conversation about that, and we're totally fine with that change.
Awesome, terrific.
Thanks.
Great.
Excellent. Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being with us, Ms. Foy, appreciate it. We don't have anybody else signed up to speak in support of the bill.
So actually, Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry to interrupt. On our web page, it says that Ms. Caprera would like to speak even though she's not on our list. Do you want to ask her if she wants to come in, or I can transfer?
I just promoted her.
Support or?
Hi, thank you.
Yeah.
Are you here to speak in support, Ms. Caprera?
Yes, we are here to speak in support for the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. We're here to speak in support of LD 308. We want to thank Senator Stewart for putting the bill in. We feel very strongly that, this credit encourages research and development in the state, and the ability to, innovate is really key to building Maine's future and the economy, especially, post-pandemic, where we have a lot of companies that have struggled. Global competition really depends on the ability of these companies to bring new products to market, whether that and really work on making those products more efficient and really improve, the capabilities of those products. And research and development is so key to that. We have a lot of companies in the state that really work to work a lot on R&D. As Kate had mentioned, Jackson Laboratories, prime example. We're truly in a global market, and the ability to innovate is so key. The governor just released a strategic plan for Maine. In that plan, it does talk about the need for innovation, which is key to building Maine's future and the economy. So we are so supportive of this bill, and we feel it's going to encourage that. So I would like to, again, thank the sponsor for putting this in, and we'd be happy to answer any questions, and we will be available for work session.
Excellent. Other questions from members of the committee for Ms. Caprera? Not seeing any. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for allowing for me to testify last minute.
Great. So I don't believe we have anybody else sign up to speak in support of the bill. We don't have anybody sign up to speak in opposition, or do we have anybody to speak neither for nor against? So we'll now close the public hearing on LD 308, and we'll open the public hearing on LD 731. This is also sponsored by Senator Stewart, so we'll hear from him, followed by Dan Brooks, who will be here to speak in support. Go ahead, Senator Stewart.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. So again, I'm Trey Stewart, State Senator in District 2, and I'm here today to present LD 731, an act to establish a program to assist regional firefighter training programs to provide tax credits to businesses that employ volunteer firefighters and emergency medical services persons, and to provide benefits to volunteer firefighters and emergency medical services persons. That's a very long title, but I assure you that is still a good bill. Prior to beginning my legislative tenure in 2017, I served for 5 years on the Presque Isle Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter. It took almost 2 years from my first joining the department to be able to complete my firefighter 1 and 2 training because of the fact that we were limited in our options for these trainings in Northern Maine. Over the same amount of time, members of the volunteer department came and went, oftentimes frustrated with the lack of available training, without which you cannot fully engage with certain aspects of a fire scene. We also would lose a number of volunteers who are frustrated about not being able to respond to calls that happen during work hours, whenever they may be working at their place of employment, and forcing them to choose between responding to calls or facing backlash at work from not being there. These problems are particularly evident in rural communities across Maine and the nation. As civic engagement is at a seeming all-time low, and the average age of residents in rural areas continues to rise as young people flock to urban centers, we must recognize that we have a growing problem. This bill seeks to address both of these issues and hopefully reinvigorate volunteers to our fire and EMS departments across our state. First, it seeks to ensure that the entity responsible for providing the trainings volunteers and full-time firefighters need to receive their firefighter 1 and 2 certification has the funding it needs to maximize its training opportunities. In speaking with members of the Maine Fire Commission, some of whom are here today, I would recommend amending this amount for this line item down to $200,000 annually. This amount would allow for the entity that provides these trainings through SMCC at a rate of 4 trainings per year around the state. In my discussions with the commission, that would likely be the maximum amount that they could achieve in a year with staffing restrictions and logistics. The second component of this bill, and that I would recommend that this committee support, is the provision that which allows for a tax credit for employers who employ volunteer firefighters or EMS responders. By allowing employers to recoup their losses arising from volunteer firefighters and EMS responding to calls and emergencies in their communities, they'll be more apt to let them leave for calls. In the original text of the bill, Section 6 calls for local municipal property tax credits to be applied to those who are volunteer firefighters or EMS responders up to $1,000. This section was written with the recently adopted LoSAP program in mind, but unfortunately that program hasn't been able to get off the ground yet. And thinking about how these initiatives might blend together at this point, I think it would be best to remove this part of the bill and return to this idea once the LoSAP program has been able to get started, and then determine whether there's an additional need for a benefit similar to this after that. In short, I recommend the committee strike Section 6 of the bill at this point in time so as to avoid confusion and bog down the other program. I've actually worked with your committee analyst, Julie Jones, who's done a fantastic job and drafted a committee amendment. And I hope that is available to you all today. If not, we can definitely make that available, but that's all reflected. That work's been done already for your convenience. To jump back to my testimony briefly, adopting simple measures such as these may be the difference to having enough well-trained hands on a fire scene who are able to mitigate property damage, keep each other and the public safe, and possibly save lives. The problem of lowered civic engagement isn't one that's specific to Maine, but it does present an opportunity for our legislature to take leadership on this issue and to take action that will move our state in the right direction. Whether you call 911 for a car accident on a busy intersection in your community or because your neighbor's house is smoking, you don't want to worry about whether the volunteers will be able to get out of work, whether they've received the proper training, or whether enough people will show up to help. You make the call because it's an emergency, and your expectation is that people will soon arrive that will help remedy the situation. I know that we all share in this expectation, but the reality is that if we don't take action as a state, we are putting municipalities around the state in a position where they will soon not be able to meet it. Thank you very much for your support of this important legislation. I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have at this time.
So thank you, Senator Stewart, and coming from the family of volunteer firefighters, I appreciate your service and your work on this very much. Questions from members of the committee? We have Representative Gramlich, followed by Representative Terry.
Thank you, Senator, and I'll introduce myself. I am Lori Gramlich. I represent House District 13, which is Old Orchard Beach. Thank you, Senator Stewart. Nice to see you again. I have a couple of questions. One is, I'm curious, and I think I know the answer, but if you could just clarify, this legislation is specific to volunteer firefighters, is that right?
So yes, with respect to with what will be ultimately be reflected in the amendment, yes. The caveat is, in knowing how this actually plays out in some of the smaller departments, for instance, if you host a training and it's a regional training, you could very well end up with, depending on what the department structure is in some of these smaller towns, they may have a, paid call volunteer, they may have a full-time with no volunteers, they may have a mix, which is pretty common. The training component could benefit both, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I'm never, going to say that you shouldn't have more training, because we all should have more training if you're, a volunteer or full-time. So while it's more geared towards ensuring that volunteers have the resources that they need, it could certainly be used for full-time as well on the training side.
Thank you. And follow up, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Stewart. I'm glad to hear that because I agree with you. I think that more training is always really beneficial, whether we're volunteer or regular paid firefighters. I'm curious, and I don't think your bill specifies it, maybe it's left up to the particular municipalities, but you know, or maybe you've spoken with some of our firefighting colleagues in terms of training that would be relative to post-traumatic stress and the implementation of critical incident stress management teams. Is that anything that might be embedded into these training opportunities that you're suggesting for firefighters?
So I recall when I took my firefighter 1 and 2 training back 2013, that was a devoted provision that was included. We talked about, you know, that the reality is when you're responding to a call, you don't know necessarily what you're responding to, and you might see something there that could be, you know, troublesome to you later on down the road. And that's okay, that, you know, firefighters struggle with mental health, just like police officers, just like members of the armed forces, and others. So, you know, there, I think probably used to be a more of a stigma around it, you know, that firefighters are tough, and they are, right? But that mental health is a real thing to keep an eye on. And I think most folks have come to that conclusion that it's okay to have PTSD. It's okay to not be okay, right? And to talk about that. And so that was a component of, you know, my training when we went through it. And the firefighter 1 and 2 training is a pretty standardized training that is actually, it's nationally certified training. So, so in theory, anybody that goes through that training is going to be receiving that. I see that Bill Gillespie is on this call as well. So I know that he could probably talk to that a little bit more. But the short answer is yes, that is a component.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll look forward to working with you more on this issue. I have a bill and that will specifically address that. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Question from Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Stewart, for bringing this. I also thank you for your service as a volunteer firefighter. Most of my friends from home are also firefighters in a volunteer program and have been for a really long time. Two things. One is to that point that they've been doing it for a really long time. Where I grew up, we had like a high school training program, even as young as middle school, to start kids off. And maybe I'll ask Mr. Gillespie about that a little bit further. But I wonder if that is the case for most volunteer firefighting, for most volunteer emergency corps stuff. Are there programs that that are sort of like a feeder program into either the college experience to become a firefighter or to keep going with volunteers?
Yeah, the short answer there is yes. But it's, so for example, Presque Isle had one such feeder program where we actually had like junior firefighters is what they were called. And this was actually when I was in high school. We had a couple of kids that were on the junior firefighter, you know, roster, but, and ultimately, actually one of them went on to become a full-time firefighter, and is still a full-time firefighter today. That since then, I believe has pretty much fallen by the wayside in large part because there wasn't enough interest in it. And so, you know, that gets back to the civic engagement component, right? That people for one reason or another are just not engaging as much in some of these roles in communities. On the college aspect, that was when I turned 18, I did two things. I registered to vote and I joined the volunteer fire department. And so, and my dad let me skip school that day for it. So, you can join, basically, if you're 18, you could join a volunteer fire department. And then ultimately it's a function of how much training can we get you and as quickly as possible, so that you're not, spending a year or two just waiting and sitting around for these trainings and not being able to, throw on an SCBA pack and actually go into a fire and do what you need to do in that regard. So it's obviously a training intensive job because safety is incredibly important. And that's the number one goal, is get everybody home and get them home, safe. So it's a tough balancing act, right? Because you want to make sure that you've got people there that can respond, but at the same time, you want to make sure that they're safe and going to be, responding appropriately and with the training that they've received over time to keep them safe and others safe.
Yeah.
But it's expensive and it takes time. And a lot of people get burnout through that process. There were a lot of people that come and go in the first year because they join thinking that, I'm just going to, run right in, full bore right out of the gate. And it doesn't really work that way. And I didn't go this route, so I shouldn't really, I'm not an expert on this, but I believe that there is an academy as well. And Bill can probably talk about that when he comes on. We did it totally differently because of our geographic location and we were volunteer. So we didn't have the luxury of giving up like 2 or 3 weeks to go to an academy. But that is, I believe, still an option, but I don't quote me on that. Bill would be the person to talk to you about that.
Well, that kind of actually brings me to my second question and about the change essentially from appropriating $1 million to $200,000 for this credit. Do you feel like that would be enough to make it so there's enough volunteer trainings going on throughout the whole state per year?
So in talking with members of the Fire Commission, I guess a week or two ago at this point, Bill, we sort of settled on that number because of the logistical, parameters around these trainings, that they're not, given the staffing levels that are currently doing this work at SMCC, they felt that 4 would be about as many as they could actually feasibly get to in a year. And that would cost about $50,000 a piece. Therefore, $200,000 became the number. I think that it does take a while to go through. I mean, it's not like an overnight thing, going through firefighter 1 and 2, and there's multiple exams that are involved that you have to take. Some of them are on paper, some of them are physical exams. And a lot of guys won't make it through on the first rodeo. We had, I think, only like a 20 or 25%, pass rate. Everybody got through on the first time when I did it. So, and if you fail, then you go to the next one, right? So then you got to go, if you were going to one in Bangor, now you got to go to one in Ellsworth, you know what I mean? For the follow-up. So, I think that is certainly an improvement of where we are. I also want to be realistic too, that whatever we do, we're going to have to get it off the approach table. And I think that $200,000 is a lot easier to get off the approach table than $1 million. And $1 million was just a starting point too. The revisor's office needed a starting point. And I said, okay, well, let's start with $1 million and see, we'll go from there. But thankfully we're going the right direction, I think, to have some practical, success here. So thanks for the question. Hope that answered it.
Sure.
Representative Matlack has a question.
Thank you very much, and welcome back, Senator Stewart. My question is about, in some respects, my community. The town of St. George has invested over time in its own burn building, and it's because it's necessary in our region. And I was wondering if this is going to be applicable to us, and what services you might be able to bring to communities that are already trying to help themselves and other communities within the region, because it's not just for the town of St. George, it's also for South Thomaston and Rockland and other municipalities within the region to assist with their firefighter training.
Right. Yeah, we've got a similar dynamic set up with the city of Caribou. So Caribou has a burn building, and that was where we did a lot of our physical training for firefighter 1 and 2, and we'd have folks go there from Fort Fairfield and Mars Hill and wherever else as well. So I think that's the right model. The community collaboration model is one that, particularly in rural towns, we need to see more of. So the short answer is yes, this would be something that, like, if you had a critical mass of volunteers from not just St. George, but the surrounding towns as well, who needed to get training, you could then reach out to, SMCC and say, hey, we've got 20 guys, and gals that want to get, certified firefighter 1 and 2. Can we do something out here? And that's sort of what it took for us. And the part of the reason we had to wait so long was because we just couldn't reach that critical mass. And then ultimately, we finally did. And so they hosted a training up north, but it took a while. And so part of what we're trying to do is cut down on that wait time, so that you don't get guys that are waiting for 2 years and then they throw their hands up and say, all right, I'm done with this. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. And I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines, that sort of thing.
Thank you very much.
Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here, Senator Stewart, presenting that important bill. So we now will hear testimony from Dan Brooks, if he's available, which I don't know if he is. Do we have Dan Brooks, Avery, that you can let in? No. And William, so we don't have Dan Brooks. He signed up to speak, but he's not here. So we'll now go to William Gillespie, who's for the Maine Fire Chiefs, to speak in support.
Good morning, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of committee. My name is Bill Gillespie. I am a man of many hats. I'm currently working as a legislative liaison for the Maine Fire Chiefs. But in this bill specifically, I am the chief of the Liberty Fire Department. I'm also the president of the Liberty Ambulance Association. I'm the chairman of the Maine Length of Service Awards Program, LOSAP, which was spoken about in this bill. And I sit on as an alternate member for the Maine Fire Service Commission. So as far as a lot of your questions, I have some basic answers. And so I've been writing down questions. I didn't prepare any specific written testimony because we did have a conversation with Senator Stewart last week. We do thank him for bringing this bill forward. But the way this is designed right now is to allow Maine Fire Service Institute to offer 4 additional classes. Maine Fire Service Institute already offers a significant amount of classes throughout the state, from the Firefighter 1 and 2 program to a basic fire school, to emergency vehicle operations classes, to pumps classes. So they are extremely busy and do cover a majority of what we're trying to do. The difficulty that we run into is we can only spread ourselves so thin. Right now with this incentive, it's to bring more money to the table to allow Maine Fire Service Institute to bring more instructors on, to allow them to offer more of the basic classes, the classes we need to start off as a firefighter from day one. And that is the Firefighter 1 and 2, the basic fire school, the pumps, and the emergency vehicle. So with that being said, I think we're doing an excellent job trying to get the training out there, but to Senator Stewart's point, we can only be in one area at one time. So we've noticed over the last couple of years when communities would ask for a class, we may have to delay it or say we can do it at a later time because we don't have the availability, both financially and to get instructors to that area for a specific period. Some of the questions did ask, do we cover multiple communities? Absolutely. We're traveling all over the place, and it does encourage both firefighters that are volunteer, per diem, or paid. So we don't discriminate from who's signing up for a class. The difficulty that we run into in the communities is funding. Small communities like mine can't afford to spend $1,000 to put on a training. And a lot of times when we're dealing with Firefighter 1 and 2 classes, it's so in depth that there is an extensive cost to doing that class. This will help lighten that load for local communities like mine that only have $1,000 budget for training for the entire year. So that being said, the city of Portland has a larger budget than a small community like mine. So it's open to whoever wants to sign up. And a lot of times the volunteers are the feeder programs for the career departments. We are the ones that are doing the training. We're investing the money into the volunteers, and then they're walking in with that experience and knowledge and joining career departments. That's the way this has been developed for years. There was also a question about the school systems. You can join a fire department at age 16. As a junior firefighter, we can train you in everything except for driving. Obviously, we can't do that, but we can train you to be an interior firefighter. At the age of 16, I have one in a class that I'm teaching currently that is 16 years old, and when he turns 18, he'll be ready to walk in the door and will not need any additional training to be an interior firefighter. He will have already achieved that. So we do have those feeder programs in the community, the high school systems. They do start as generally as a junior. And there's some communities that have tried it, but there's really at this point in time, not a lot of jobs in career firefighting, and there's a lot that goes into it. So when we're dealing with the high school area, trying to encourage kids to take this as a career, we're not looking at a large feeder program for the city of Portland and the bigger communities. They are struggling to get people, because what we're currently looking for is not just a firefighter. We're looking for someone that is a firefighter that has emergency medical experience as well. And there's certain levels of experience they're looking for. So I'm happy to answer any questions and try to give some of my experience on what we can do to improve with this money in this bill.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here and offering your testimonies. Very helpful. And one more call for Dan Brooks. I don't think we have him. Do we either? Speak? No. Without him to speak and support, that concludes the testimony of those in favor. We don't have anybody signed up to speak in opposition, and we don't have anybody signed up to speak either for nor against. So we'll now conclude the public hearing on LD 731, and we will open up the public hearing on LD 401, which is sponsored by Representative Underwood. So we'll hear from Representative Underwood, followed by Spike Savage to speak in support of LD 401. Is Representative Underwood with us?
Just promoted him.
Welcome, Representative Underwood.
Good morning. That's quite an ambition list that you have here, Senator Chipman, for today, that's for sure.
Yeah.
My name is, good morning, folks, and Senator Chipman and Representative Terry and all the distinguished members of the committee. I am Representative Joseph Underwood from Presque Isle, District 147, and I'm here to present a bill which is an act to provide a sales and use tax exemption for certain nonprofit cemeteries. One of the constituents of the district asked me to do this, and this proposal is quite simple. It seeks to create a sales and use tax exemption for incorporated nonprofit cemeteries that is exempt from federal income tax under the United States Internal Revenue Code of 1986. As economic hardships caused by COVID-19 lingers, additional tax relief could be granted by this body, and it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Looks like we maybe lost, oh, no, there you are. Senator Chipman, sorry.
No, I'm here. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Yes, go ahead, Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. The squares keep moving. Representative Underwood, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just simply curious, and I guess maybe I'm uninformed or naive, I'm inferring that because your bill is looking specifically to provide this exemption for nonprofit cemeteries, are there for-profit cemeteries out there? I just never heard of such a thing, and I'm just kind of curious about that.
I'm not sure about for-profit cemeteries, but there might be some cemeteries that, I guess I can't. There might be some cemeteries that do not have an exemption and need an official legal reason to apply for an exemption, for these exemptions. And for example, like the cemetery that I'm particularly that I'm scheduled to be buried in, it's a very, very small cemetery. And anything that could be granted or received, even from someone buying grass seed or the lawnmower or et cetera, would be appreciated. And because of the endowments of the committee of the cemeteries have dropped as a result of COVID-19, additional relief is needed. And I thank you very much for the question.
Follow up, if I may, Senator.
Go ahead, Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Representative Underwood. You may or may not know the answer to this question, and that's okay. Perhaps we can get it later on, but do we know how many, or do you know how many nonprofit cemeteries are in the state of Maine?
No, I do not at this time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
We have a question from Representative Carmichael.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Representative Underwood.
Good morning.
About how much purchasing does the cemetery do during the run of a year?
Well, I would say it's minimum. The exact amount, I have no idea as to exactly what the amount is. But I'm sure that economic relief from this bill would be greatly appreciated. And assistance, I cannot give you an exact amount at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
No questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being with us, Representative Underwood, and great to see you here in the Taxation Committee. We will now hear from those who want to speak in support of the bill. We only have one person signed up, Spike Savage. According to Avery, he's not here. He has not joined us to be able to speak. And we don't have anybody else signed up to speak in support of the bill. We don't have anybody signed up to speak in opposition or for neither for nor against. So I guess with that, we'll close the public hearing on LD 401. And we will now open up the public hearing on LD 506, which is sponsored by Representative Seth Berry, who will introduce the bill, and then we'll hear from our public advocate, Barry Hobbins, to speak in support. Is Representative Berry with us?
He's not on. He didn't register for the hearing either.
Senator, I can send him a quick text and make
Yeah,
sure.
why don't we go to the next bill if Senator Miramont's with us, and then we'll hear from Representative Berry afterward. If you want to try to track him down,
Okay.
Berry, that would be great. Is Senator Miramont with us?
I just promoted him.
We'll now hear from Senator Miramont to introduce LD 538, followed by Stacy Kiefer to speak in support of LD 538. Welcome, Senator Miramont.
Thank you, Senator Chipman. Caught me by surprise on that one. Huh? Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Welcome.
So I come before you today, and good morning. Let's present the right bill. Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and distinguished members of the Taxation Committee. My name's Dave Miramont, and I proudly represent all the people of Appleton, Camden, Cree Haven, Cushing, Friendship, Hope, Isla, Homatinnicus, Muscle Ridge Islands, North Haven, Owl's Head, Rockland, Rockport, South Thomas, and St. George, Thomaston, Union, Vinyl Haven, and Warren in the Maine Senate. And it should be Representative Matlack. So anyway, I come before you to present LD 538, an act to exempt trailers sold to out-of-state entities from sales tax use or sales use tax. And this part of the testimony is the same as you heard last session when we had a robust discussion. It was approved unanimously by the committee and died in the limbo that became the end of our session. So there's a business in my district that manufactures utility, horse, and other types of trailers, and they contacted me regarding inequity in the taxation of their product. Vehicles sold in Maine to be used out of state are exempt from Maine sales tax. When the vehicle is registered, sales tax is collected in the state where the registration is obtained. That's the way it should work for all vehicles, including trailers, but currently sales tax is required on trailers at the time of purchase. That means that my constituent who sells trailers can avoid collecting sales tax if they deliver a load of trailers just over the state line. If the customer comes to the factory to pick up the trailers instead, they will be charged sales tax. Customers should pay sales tax when they register their trailers, not at the time of sale. This would mean that my constituent and business people like him would no longer need to consider driving across state lines to avoid collecting sales tax on some products. And it also came up that this was not equally distributed because there were other dealers in the state who would price trailers competitively, as my constituent does, but then when the folks came to pick them up, they just would not collect the sales tax. But my constituent is very honest, and he would not consider ever doing that. So it puts them at a disadvantage. And one way that's sort of disguised is they'll sell a snowmobile with a trailer, and they'll throw the trailer in and add to the price of the snowmobile. These sort of things that are ways of getting around the tax. But for someone like my constituent, that's just never an option. And so he was really just telling me about this. And I thought, well, why are we rewarding people who would skirt a law instead of the folks who honor them and try to work with them? But know that it's unfair. It's a vehicle that needs a registration plate, and that's very clear in law that is when you charge tax. So that's all I have, and I'm glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Senator Miramont. Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none. So these are trailers that are sold to people in Maine and people that come from out of state both to buy them, and they're currently charged the tax and still would exempt the tax from the trailer sale.
Yes, and if my friend has a trailer that he built to haul trailers, and he will haul them to a distributor if there's enough. But if someone buys one and says, "Oh, I'm coming on vacation anyway, I'll pick it up," he has to tell them that if they do, they'll be charged sales tax, and then they have to go through that whole long story. Or if he has a couple orders, he'll just drive down and meet people at the border. But it's quite a coordination and confusion based on something that we absolutely control. You can't run a trailer without a plate. And when you go to get the plate, you have to fill out the sales tax form to get your plate. So we've got it covered.
So when they buy the trailer, they're charged a sales tax, but then when they register it, they're taxed again as well?
No, if they register it in Maine, they would demonstrate that they paid the tax with the Maine use form. There are states without sales tax for one thing, but our law doesn't require a sales tax on something delivered out of state. And those folks have to deal with their own Bureau of Motor Vehicles to get their plate. So it just may not be a very fair system, even out of state, for those folks, for whatever rules they have to follow there.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you for presenting that bill again to us. And I do remember this from last session, coming back to me now, but appreciate that for being here and introducing the bill. We don't see, we've got Stacy Kiefer, who would like to speak in support of the bill. Is Stacy Kiefer with it?
Thank you.
Unmute myself. There we go.
We'd just like to remind folks who are speaking on all these bills, other than the sponsors, those that are here from the public to speak, to try to keep your comments to 3 minutes if you can. We do have a lot of bills on our schedule today, 8 bills altogether. So welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of the Committee on Taxation. My name is Stacy Kiefer, and I'm the director of the Maine Marine Trades Association. I am representing over 100 businesses in our membership. Purchasing a boat is not usually a small investment, and boats that fit on trailers are often sold as a package deal because the buyer is either new to boating, thus new to also owning a trailer, or they're upsizing to a larger boat that subsequently requires a larger trailer. Savvy shoppers of boats will take time to research their options, and it's not uncommon that they will shop within a day's drive of their home, which is pretty much the New England region. That puts other New England states in the same potential shopping radius for boat shoppers. The removal of sales tax on trailers that will be leaving the state can potentially boost both trailer and boat sales for our Maine dealers and boat brokers. And most of you are aware, as Senator Miramont mentioned, there are sales tax exemptions in other states like New Hampshire, but Maine marine businesses also compete with Rhode Island and Connecticut. Rhode Island charges 0 boat sales tax and boat property tax. They also forgo taxes on all boating services and other marine related things bought with new or used vessels, including trailers. In 2018, Connecticut lowered their sales tax on boats and trailers from 6% to 2.99% to try to become more competitive with Rhode Island and other New England states too. For many of our dealers and brokers, their portion of business from out-of-state buyers can range between 25 to up to 50%. So removing the sales tax on items destined to leave the state anyway can help streamline the purchase and sale process and help our businesses stay more competitive in the regional boating market. We appreciate your support of this bill. We supported it last session and hope you will also consider supporting it again this year.
Excellent. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for, actually, we have a question from Representative Carmichael.
Morning, and thank you for your testimony. Usually when you buy a boat and a trailer in a package deal, certainly the price of the boat must reflect the price of the trailer. They're not just giving away the trailer, they're combining the two in some form or manner, right?
Thank you for that question, Representative Carmichael. My understanding is the dealers have to do 2 separate transactions of paperwork. One is the sale of the boat and one is the sale of the trailer, even though they prefer to sell it as a package. And as Senator Miramont mentioned, unfortunately, there may be a few dishonest folks out there who just say they're throwing in the trailer and then just up the price of the boat or something. I'm not aware that any of our members do that, thankfully. So it is a bit onerous to have to, submit extra paperwork just for the trailer and separately for the boat.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony today on this bill. We don't have anybody else signed up to speak in support. We don't have anybody signed up to speak in opposition or neither for nor against. We'll now conclude the public hearing on LD 538. Representative Terry, were you able to reach Representative Barry about his bill?
I was, and I believe he is trying to get here very quickly. And thank you, Senator. I think that, yes, so sorry. So he is trying to get here quickly. His advocates are here already. I would say jump to another bill, but it looks like our other 3 bills are waiting for legislators to come in for those as well. I don't know, Senator, perhaps maybe take a 5-minute break and let everybody stretch their legs for a sec while we're waiting for folks?
I mean, we can do that, but will we need quorum when we come back? Or
we shouldn't have to, no, because we're still in a meeting. Everybody's just getting up to stretch their legs.
Okay, why don't we take a 10-minute break? It's 10:06. We'll come back at say 10:15.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Sound good, everyone?
9-minute break. So we'll see everybody at 10:15. We'll just go at ease for the time being, awaiting sponsors to arrive to introduce these bills.
Excellent.
past.
Senator Stewart, have you joined our committee?
All right, so it's 10:15. Representative Terry, I guess we'll start back up.
Yep, I just invited Representative Berry
Okay.
to join us.
So we'll pick back up with LD 506, followed by LD 435. I'm sorry, 611, 435, and then 23. So we'll hear this bill, Avery, and then we'll have one person here to speak in support. And then if you can reach out to the sponsors of LD 611 and 435 so they can be here and ready to go, that would be great. Then we'll finish out with Senator Pouliot and his bill LD 23. So welcome, Representative Berry. We're here to have the public hearing on LD 506. Representative Berry, are you with us?
I might be stuck.
You're okay. No, stay.
I thought that would be Representative Collins saying that to his pooch.
Nope, sorry, it was me.
We don't get to see the dog, Ted.
So, Representative Terry, can you get a hold of Representative Berry? And
Yeah, I just texted him again. Looks, there he is. There he is.
welcome, Representative Berry. Good to see you.
Busy guy.
All right. We're here ready to hear from you to introduce LD 506.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of the committee. Apologize for being a little late. I had a plumber show up just when you guys were getting started, or just before, and plumbing emergencies can't wait. So I'm sure you can appreciate that. I am here to present LD 506. Again, my name is Seth Berry. I proudly represent House District 55, which is Bowdoin, Bowdoinham, almost all of Richmond, and beautiful Swan Island on the Kennebec. LD 506 is a bill put forward by the Office of the Public Advocate here in Maine, who is really the lawyer for the people in all utility proceedings at the Public Utilities Commission. LD 506 is entitled An Act to Reduce the Tax Burden on Low-Income Electricity Customers. I am very pleased to sponsor this bill. I think it's a very important bill for a number of reasons. And I'll get into that a little bit later in my testimony. But first, let me just say what it does. The bill would exempt from the sales tax all electricity consumed by residential customers of our electricity utilities who are participating in either a low-income assistance program or the so-called arrearage management program, which is run by the utilities under Maine law and as administered by the Public Utilities Commission. So the exemption would maximize the value of the benefit from these programs and really comes at a critical time. The Public Advocate commissioned a study a couple of years ago, and it was done by Synapse, a very respected consultancy. What the study came up with is a finding that Maine's lower income customers and residents pay one of the highest energy burdens in the country. And an energy burden is a percentage of your income that you spend on energy overall. Now, I do want to clarify that that's an overall energy burden. It's the portion of income that goes to all energy sources. So, you know, gasoline for your car, you know, heating oil, and about 60% of Maine homes currently use oil as a primary source of heat in the wintertime. And also electricity. So these are the, you know, three of the biggest kind of reasons that people do pay a very high portion of their income. For the lowest income Mainers, that is a pretty striking amount. In fact, it's a total of, on average, 1/4 of the income of someone who is making minimum wage. So, you know, if you're making, you know, $20,000 a year right now, maybe supporting a couple kids, maybe you're a single parent, you're going to be paying about $5,000 of those $20,000 that you have to live on energy, and that doesn't leave you very much to, you know, buy the kid a bicycle and put food on the table and pay your mortgage. Maybe you have college loans, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very significant drag on these lower income households. So why now? Why is this important now? As I said, you know, heating oil, gasoline is also part of it. And we do fortunately exempt heating oil from the sales tax. So that's a good thing. And I should also mention, we do currently exempt the first 750 kilowatt hours of electricity consumed by the residential customers here in Maine from the sales tax. So this is sort of, it layers on top of that 750 kilowatt hour exemption. I hope that helps to bring down the cost, but it also does something very critical at a very critical time. We are hoping that electricity usage will actually increase in the near future. We are encouraging Mainers to switch to a much more economical and a much cleaner source of heating, and that is the principally the dual source heat pump. Heat pumps have been supported under the LePage administration, supported under the Mills administration, as a much cheaper, much cleaner alternative to heat your home. They're often installed as supplemental heating, as the primary source of heating and cooling, but with the oil furnace still there as a backup system. Heat pumps were very famously promoted by Jim Lebrecht, who was an energy advisor to Governor LePage. They are now being very strongly promoted. We have a great incentive put forward by the Efficiency Maine Trust to encourage people to check out heat pumps. I encourage you to do so if you don't already have one. I'm currently exploring that right now, although I heat primarily with wood. Heat pumps will definitely increase the usage of all customers, including lower income customers. Another thing that is increasingly coming online now are electric vehicles. I think you all saw probably a couple weeks ago that Chevrolet announced that all of its new vehicles would be EVs by, I may get this wrong, I want to say 2030, but pretty soon. The whole industry is really transitioning towards electricity as a primary fuel for transportation as well, in particular for passenger vehicles. So what this means is that the cost burden I mentioned, which is so heavy on our lower income residents, is going to be shifting from spending on fossil fuels to spending on electricity. And that's a good thing, right? It's cleaner, and it also keeps more of our money here in Maine, because we can produce clean energy here in Maine. We can't produce fossil fuels. That's just not an option for us. So our energy independence will improve. That's great. But we need to be cost conscious, and we need to make sure that we're not accidentally discouraging all Mainers from participating in that, or making it harder for lower income Mainers to participate in that transition. A just transition, by the way, is also very important as part of our climate work and the climate legislation that was passed last year. So if we are exempting all heating oil from the sales tax, but we're not exempting all electricity from the sales tax for lower income individuals, at least, then we risk creating the wrong set of incentives. So exempting just for lower income customers, as the public advocate has proposed with this bill, the full amount that they use, if they're eligible for LIHEAP, the low income home energy assistance program, or if they are currently under the arrearage management program, is just a really important, really timely idea. And I'm very proud to bring the bill forward. The details of LIHEAP or the arrearage management program may be of interest to you. I'm happy to speak more about those things, or perhaps the public advocate can do so if you're interested. But I think it's an appropriate threshold for eligibility as presented under this bill. So again, thank you for your willingness to entertain the bill at this time, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Representative Berry. Question from Representative Kreiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Berry, when you mentioned that there's already a tax break for, was it the first 750 kilowatts?
That's right.
Is that for everybody or just the people that are in this program?
That is for everyone. And it's actually slightly over the average usage. So that's a good thing. Maine consumers on average use about 500 kilowatt hours, but that is rapidly changing, and it will change dramatically as we shift to heat pumps and electric vehicles. I think, for those who are, considering that full switch, we're talking about, 4 or 5-fold increase in your electricity usage. And that is something that we anticipate, all customers at all levels being able to do very soon. So we really need to consider raising that bar.
Thank you.
Any question from Representative Carmichael?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Berry, for presenting this bill. I had a question on the billing, and keeping all that. That seems like a fairly complicated process. And how do you envision that to be handled?
Thank you. That's a great question, Representative Carmichael. And I think there are others who can speak to it with a little more specificity than I can. But I will say that the arrearage management program is administered now by our investor-owned utilities. So Central Maine Power and Versant both administer that under the guidance of the Public Utilities Commission, and with additional oversight by the public advocate. The arrearage management program allows customers to, if they're keeping up with their payments, to have a portion of past overdue amounts arrearage forgiven. And because these customers are already enrolled in that program, it should be a fairly simple thing for the utilities to add on and administer this additional piece. But I think, it certainly, there is one extra box that they would need to check. So I want to acknowledge that. We do, as part of utility rate making, compensate the utilities for all of that activity. So they should be fine with this. They'll be compensated. It won't cost them extra in the long run to administer this program. But certainly, if you wanted to open up the exemption to everyone, I'd be open to that conversation as well. I just think we need to, start somewhere and try to create at least an exemption for those who need it most.
Thank you.
Question from Representative Collins.
Yes, good morning, Representative Barry. I was curious when you mentioned the GMC automobile fleet, and so I checked that out just so everyone knows. They're about 12 now. They're trying to get to 25 different electric vehicles by 2025, and by 2035 they want to have an all-electric fleet, which I think is pretty amazing. So I'm glad you brought that up.
2035. Thank you. Thanks for doing that extra check there.
I'm a fact checker.
Any additional questions from members of the committee? Did you have another question, Representative Pryzak? Your hand's up. Oh, I guess not. Seeing no other questions, thank you, Representative Barry. Great to see you. Thanks for presenting that bill for us, and I look forward to working with you on it in the work session.
Thank you all very much. And Senator Chipman, if I may, I neglected to thank the committee for taking my written testimony on an earlier bill since I was unable to be present. The Energy Utilities Technology Committee has kept me pretty busy. So I didn't have the opportunity to say earlier that I owe you a tribute of some kind. I am a former member of the Taxation Committee, and I realize it's a little challenging keeping our traditions alive in this day and age, but I'll do my best to make good on my my obligations.
All right, sounds good. We appreciate that. So we will now hear from those who want to speak in support of the bill. If Barry Hobbins is with us, maybe we could hear from him first, the Office of the Public Advocate, followed by Kira Reardon. Welcome, Mr. Hobbins.
Well, thank you very much, Senator and Representative Terry. My name is Barry Hobbins, and I'm here today in my capacity as Public Advocate with the Office of the Public Advocate. And I am here to testify in favor, in support of LD 506. This bill is well put by the chair of the Energy Utilities and Technology Committee, Representative Barry. Really has done a good job in putting together a summary of it. I would like to thank Representative Barry for submitting this very important piece of legislation. This bill was drafted and thought of by our consumer advisor, Kira Reardon, and I appreciate her efforts to come forward with this idea in a very important issue. As I said before, under current law, residential electric bills are exempt for the first 750 kilowatt hours for sales tax. That is really wonderful for the average household in Maine using 540 kilowatt hours per month. However, we know that households participating in needs-based low-income assistance programs like LIHEAP and LIHEAP use almost double the average household and households enrolled in the arrearage management program. They use even more than that. I believe that the bill is necessary, especially after the past year, because the current law taxes those who are able to pay. This exemption would be an enormous benefit for low-income residential customers in Maine. While I understand that this bill will cause a revenue loss of the general fund, I know that there are benefits that are a possibility, which I'll outline later on. Since I have been public advocate, the Office of the Public Advocate has commissioned 2 studies examining the energy burden faced on low-income Mainers. The first study was Maine Low-Income Household Energy Efficiency Baseline Study. The second was Maine Low-Income Home Energy Burden Study. As you know, as we can see from these studies, the state of Maine has addressed the energy usage disparity through various measures, but the disparity still exists in the state of Maine. We need to continue to look at the energy burden in a holistic fashion. This bill is an important piece to that end. The links of these studies, which I mentioned, can be found at the end of my testimony and will provide valuable information as to why this bill is so important. I will close by saying that there could be other possible avenues to mitigate the loss of revenue to the general fund, including possible benefits from the recently passed American Rescue Plan. Ironically, this afternoon, I will be attending a webinar hosted by the National Energy and Utility Coalition that will look at the options available and will be discussed in that webinar. I want to thank you for your time and attention. Look forward to working with you during a work session. If you have any difficult, complicated questions, I would defer to our consumer advisor, who fortunately is with us, Kara Reardon. And I do want to thank you all and hope you give this bill some consideration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hobbins. Good to see you. Were there any questions from members of the committee? I don't see any questions. Thank you for presenting your testimony to us today. We will now hear also to speak in support from Kira Reardon.
Senator Chipman, thank you so much. I'm actually here just to support Barry Hobbins and answer any technical questions that may arise.
Okay. So you don't have, we have a question from Representative Sachs.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, Representative Barry and Mr. Hobbins and Kira, Ms. Reardon as well. I wanted to ask, having been a community resource for those who are applying for LIHEAP, I understand that those in arrearage programs, probably this is pretty easily administered. Why, Ms. Reardon, did you feel that since this was generated by you, did you feel like this would be of a significant benefit? And number two, how would this be administered for those who are applying for LIHEAP, because they have to do it on an annual basis and could fluctuate in and out of the program? Thanks.
Absolutely. Representative Sachs, thank you for the question. I think that the language is specific actually to the low income assistance program, which is specific for electric and not HEAP. So it wouldn't apply to HEAP eligible households unless they also receive funding through the Electricity Lifeline program or the low income assistance program. And I think that that annual recertification is important because as someone's financial status stabilizes, they wouldn't necessarily need this exemption. So that continual annual certification would actually provide reassurance that this benefit is being given to those who are truly eligible for it. And the Maine Housing provides the HEAP eligible list to the utilities, I believe on a monthly basis. It might be more frequent than that now. So the utilities are currently receiving information in real time from Maine Housing for households as they're certified, and they track that to administer these other electric programs. So there's already a mechanism in place to receive those updated information. And I think it's especially important now. We've been working with the utilities on a number of low-income programs and initiatives, and we're finding that especially in the COVID era, but any year, honestly, I feel like maybe we're on the horizon of coming out of this, those dollars just don't go far enough. We're talking about households that receive less than $20,000 a year, like Representative Barry mentioned. And so any incremental help that we can provide, any additional benefit, helps stretch those benefit dollars that they're receiving. So rather than taking their LIAP funding and having to apply it to sales tax, they're able to lower their electric bill rather than taking state money and putting it back into state money. It feels to me like this is a problem that we can solve and have those funds actually go to the recipient in the way they're intended. I hope I answered both of your questions. Sorry.
You did. Thank you. It's what I suspected, having worked in the program and with many of the folks that you're hoping to help with this program, but it's reassuring to hear that I was on the right track, and so are you. Thank you.
Excellent. We have a question from Representative Carmichael.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if you have an example of how much a recipient of this might save them, how much they normally pay in a tax on a I know that's usage relevant, but I mean, do you have an idea of how much this might be?
That's a great question, Representative, and one I cannot answer. I'm certain I could get that information for you by work session, though.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here, Ms. Reardon. Good to see you. And for Mr. Hobbins for being here as well.
Thank you very much, Senator.
I don't think we have anybody else to speak in favor, and we don't have anybody to sign up to speak in opposition. We have nobody signed up to speak either for nor against. We'll now conclude the public hearing on LD 506.
Actually, Mr. Chair, can I answer Mr. Carmichael's question? Representative Carmichael's question?
Okay.
I just wanted to note that, and this may help Ms. Reardon when she comes back to the answer, I would just caution you to say that the amount, while important in terms of a fiscal note for general fund, I do think you need to recognize that the amount is, while it may be small for some, is actually, again, having worked with these families, every bit goes back into trying to help them survive. Again, we're talking about people who make 20,000 or less. So I just wanted to caution you to look at the fiscal note in those lenses. The impact of it may be a little bit different. So, and that may help Ms. Reardon when she comes back with for the work session. Thanks.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you. I understand.
So we're now down to 3 bills and none of the sponsors are here. So I don't know what we should do other than maybe have another member look up the bill and read us the summary and introduce the bill on their behalf, and we can not keep the public waiting and keep everybody on the committee waiting. Does that sound okay, Representative Terry? I think you're muted.
Yes, I was. Sorry about that.
I think that's Senator Pouliot, and he's, can't be here for another 10 to 15 minutes. And we did say we'd take him last, and these other 2 bills, we may hear from him, but these other 2 bills, I mean, they've been advertised. The sponsors knew they were being heard. I know they were at a press conference or something, and that stuff does happen. But we really need maybe another member of the committee at this point to introduce the bills so that we can hear from them at the work session if they want to attend the work session and offer additional information.
Looks like Representative Kryzak may have some.
If you let me make a quick call, I'll get right back to you. And if they're not going to make it, then I'll present the, well, actually, I don't have anything in writing, so I can't present the bill.
All you have to do is look up the bill online and just, introduce the bill and maybe read the summary for it. And, we can always hear additional information at the work session, but.
All right, let me make a quick call.
Okay. We'll just kind of hang tight, everyone, for a few minutes till we hear back from Representative Kryzak, and then we will proceed forward with the rest of our public hearings.
Representative Kryzak, just so you know, I'm going to mute you so we don't hear your call.
Did you have something, Representative Collins? Your hand's up.
Oh, I was just going to suggest maybe a brief break of 10 minutes, but I guess we found another solution to reach the sponsors. So,
yeah, we've already taken a 10-minute break, and we haven't even been meeting for 2 hours yet. So, anyway, we'll get things back on track.
I don't mind breaks.
Representative Perry, do you have something to say?
Well, I guess it's too late now because he just left. I didn't have a question during the public hearing, but I was just going to say hi to the public advocate and tell him how nice it was to see him here today, as long as we're just chatting. But he took off just before he called on me.
Oh.
I think he's still in the waiting room, so I'm sure he can hear you.
Representative Kryzak, are you back with some news for us?
I am. We will have somebody on very shortly. They're going up. They just finished the a meeting, and so we'll have all three of them shortly. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we all set with the change of calendar for next week as far as notification, all that?
So everybody knows we made a few changes. Should have announced that at the beginning of the meeting. You should be getting a corrected calendar if you haven't yet from our analyst or our clerk, but we made some changes to reflect the fact we're having a session on Tuesday at the Civic Center. We got a memo from presiding officers to all the committee chairs asking that the committees not meet on Tuesday or Wednesday because of the session at the Civic Center, which we had work sessions scheduled for Tuesday and public hearings scheduled for Wednesday. So we've changed the schedule to have the work sessions that were scheduled for Tuesday to be on Monday at 9:00 a.m. and the public hearings that were scheduled for Wednesday to be held on Friday at 9:00 a.m. So that we should be getting a corrected calendar soon that reflects that, but that way we will not fall behind at all in terms of our work in the committee as a reflection of the session at the State House or at the Civic Center.
And you got your corrected calendars this morning at 8:37 from Julie.
Oh,
Okay.
Great.
Representative Pickett is signing on now. You should have him any second.
Okay, great. Great. So yeah, so we'll first hear from Representative Pickett to introduce LD 435, followed by Andrew Carlton, who will be speaking in support of the bill.
He's setting up his tablet. Matt, Senator Pouliot is here.
Okay. Should we hear Senator Pouliot's bill first, Representative Kryzak, or
That would make sense because the senator is already here.
yes? Okay.
Yep.
He needs to be promoted to panelist, so do that. That'd be great. So we will now hear from our very own Senator Pouliot, who's going to introduce LD 23 as the sponsor. And following his testimony, we will hear from Colleen Quint to speak in support. Welcome, Senator Pouliot. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as well. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, everything sounds great.
Okay, great, thanks. Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and fellow colleagues on the Taxation Committee. I'm Senator Matt Pouliot. I represent Senate District 15, which includes the towns of Kennebec County, Augusta, China, Oakland, Sydney, and Vassarboro. I'm pleased to sponsor this bill on behalf of the Finance Authority of Maine, which is an act to reinstate and increase the income tax deduction for contributions to education savings plans. I sponsored this bill on behalf of FAME, which is here today to explain the details. Anything we can do to encourage education savings and thereby reduce student borrowing and debt is a good idea. During the 129th legislature, a similar bill received a favorable vote out of this committee, but died on the table when we had to adjourn due to the pandemic. Until a few years ago, Maine offered a modest $250 deduction for contributions to an education savings account like NextGen 529, which is Maine's education savings plan and is administered by FAME. That deduction was removed by the legislature as part of some comprehensive tax changes in the budget during the first session of the 127th. I don't believe it was due to any policy choice against the deduction, but rather to make way for more funds for income tax reduction and to help simplify the tax form. As a result, however, Maine is now in a minority of states offering no tax incentive to save for education expenses. This is too bad, especially when we consider that Maine students on average have $33,591 in outstanding student loan debt, and they need our help. This bill not only would restore the previously available income tax deduction, but would also increase it from the former $250 limit to a maximum of $1,000 annually per designated beneficiary. I hope you'll support this bill and join me in making it a funding priority in what will now likely be a supplemental budget. Thank you for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, Senator Pouliot. Do we have any questions from members of the committee? Don't see any at this point. Thank you for presenting the bill to us. We'll now hear from Colleen Quint to speak in support of the bill, followed by Bill Norbert to speak in support of the bill. Is Colleen Quint with us?
Colleen is not on.
Is Bill Norbert on?
Just promoted him.
We'll now hear from William Norbert from FAME and speak in support, and then we'll hear from Mike Allen speaking either for nor against. Welcome.
Good,
Norbert, good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, distinguished members of the Taxation Committee. My name is Bill Norbert. I'm the Governmental Affairs and Communications Manager at the Finance Authority of Maine. I live in Brunswick, and I'm here to speak in favor of this bill, which is an agency bill. First, we want to thank Senator Pouliot for sponsoring the bill again this year. He has done so in the past. We appreciate it. Also, last legislature, Senator Guerin submitted a bill virtually identical, which got a favorable vote out of this committee and died on the appropriations table, as Senator Pouliot noted. But we hope to finish the job this session with your help. As Senator Pouliot mentioned, this bill would reinstate a previously available tax deduction, which was designed to encourage contributions to Section 529 plans, to encourage college savings, education savings, and to reduce student debt. And it also can be a great tool to attract talent to the state, because NextGen is a terrific 529 program with generous matching benefits and a lot of advantages. And it's mentioned in the state's 10-year economic development strategy as well. So this, in order to limit the fiscal note, this bill is targeted to certain incomes, as it used to be on the books and statute. It was targeted to individual federal adjusted gross incomes not to exceed $100,000 for single filers, or $200,000 for individuals filing married joint returns. I think many of you know that Section 529 education savings accounts exist in almost every state, and FAME is charged with running Maine's, which is known as NextGen 529. And we're really proud of it. It's a very successful education savings plan. It's the 6th or 7th largest in the nation. It has over $12.5 billion in assets. And as I mentioned, it's been very successful. Maine is now in a minority of states not offering a deduction or a tax credit to encourage folks to invest and save for future education expenses. And we think that's unfortunate. We'd like to see it returned. I'm not going to read all of my testimony. I know I have limited time, but you'll see the various states and what they offer. We think this one's fairly modest, but $1,000, but it still would be very important to have. And another thing I wanted to mention is that Congress has expanded in recent years the permissible uses of Section 529 education savings plans. So now it's not just for college, it can also be for K through 12 tuition expenses. It can help to reimburse for student debt payments up to $10,000, not just for an account, for a beneficiary of an account, but also for their siblings. They also can be used to roll over to an ABLE savings account, which is for individuals with disabilities. So there are lots of great uses for them. They become broader. And we think the time is right to restore this deduction. We hope you can support this. We do have one amendment, it's very minor, to suggest, and that is that the effective date in the bill be listed and changed to January 1 of next year, 2022, and not retroactive to January 1 of this year. So thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Norbert. A question from Representative Perry, followed by Representative Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you said Perry, not Terry. I get confused. All right. Thank you, Mr. Norbert, for being here today.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Senator, for introducing the bill. So there used to be a Maine income tax deduction available. Now, Mainers, am I right that Mainers can invest in any state's plan that they want? It does not
Correct.
have to be a plan. So would
That's
this exemption be for this Maine plan only, or any plan? And if an out-of-stater invests in the Maine plan, do they get a deduction in their home state, or that's up to their home state? How's that work?
Right, any plan. This is to not just benefit Maine's plan, which you know about, but it could be any plan. And it is limited to folks with Maine income tax liability, so presumably mostly residents. So I hope that answers your question.
And one last question, is the Alphon matching grant still available when people open these?
Yes, it is. Representative Perry has mentioned the first in the nation $500 for a baby born in Maine that the Harold Alphon Foundation generously made available. That is still available. And yes, we're very proud of that as well. And I think, if I may speak, my friend Colleen Quinn planned to testify. She is with the Alphon Scholarship Foundation, and is very knowledgeable about that $500 plan. She, I believe, has submitted testimony, but she couldn't make it because, like you, Representative, she had to get her shot. So congratulations on your shot today.
A question from Representative Sachs, followed by Representative Terry.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Norbert, and for Senator Pouliot for bringing this forward. Just wondered if you'd seen any change in utilization of this program since the benefit was decreased or taken away in 2015. And I recognize there are a lot of factors that can impact, including economics, but we were in a time of a boom. So there's lots of counterbalancing thoughts around that. But specific to this, were you able to figure out if there was any change in utilization?
Yeah, that's a good question, Representative. I think I'd like to check with our team. I'm not even sure that information is available to them because MRS, of course, tracks who takes the deductions. But I think it would be hard, frankly, to say whether it changed behavior. But I will ask our team and try and get you some information for the work session.
And one of the reasons, thank you so much for that. One of the reasons is, of course, the thought is that it would spur investment, greater investment in this. So if we're saying that, was there any evidence when it was taken away, how many people took the $250 deduction and then the decrease in utilization of the program itself? That actually, those numbers may be available to you. And I realize it's a little bit of a data crunching piece of it, but if the thrust of this is ostensibly to encourage investment, full disclosure, 2 kids, one's still in college, one's now in law school, used a 529, totally love the program, but trying to figure out if this is the right mechanism to spur investment in education, or if there's other ways to do so. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
A question from, thought Representative Terry had a question, but you don't.
I did, but Representative Sachs asked the same question I was going to. I can pre-ask Dr. Allen for that information, knowing he's up next. Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Other questions from members of the committee? Thank you for being with us. So we'll now testimony from those in favor. There's nobody to speak and no opposition. So we now will hear from Mike Allen from DAFS to speak neither for nor against.
Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of the Taxation Committee, good morning. My name is Michael Allen. I'm the Associate Commissioner for Tax Policy in the Department of Administrative and Financial Services, and I'm presenting this testimony today at the request of the administration to testify neither for nor against LD 23. For tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2021, the bill reinstates an income tax deduction for contributions to a qualified tuition program established under Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code. The deduction equal to contributions made to a qualified tuition plan up to $1,000 for each designated beneficiary may not be claimed by taxpayers whose federal adjusted gross income is more than $100,000 if filing single, or married filing separately, or $200,000 if filing head of household or married filing jointly. Currently, contributions to a qualified tuition program are not exempt from either federal or state income tax. Qualified distributions, including earnings, are excluded from federal adjusted gross income and therefore are also excluded from Maine taxable income. A similar $250 income tax deduction for contributions to a qualified tuition program applicable to tax years 2007 through 2015 was repealed for tax years beginning after 2015. There is no evidence the reinstatement of this deduction will increase contributions to 529 plans by Maine residents. The administration would like to note that the Finance Authority of Maine currently offers a grant for qualified contributions of 30% of the contribution up to a maximum of a $300 grant, compared to this bill, which offers a maximum tax savings of $71.50. Unlike the famed matching grant, the lowest income Mainers, those without any Maine income tax liability, would receive no benefit from this deduction. Furthermore, while there are income caps on eligibility for the deduction, we estimate most taxpayers taking the deduction will have incomes close to those income limits. The preliminary administrative cost of the bill is estimated to be $22,000 for computer programming to add lines to the individual and fiduciary income tax returns. The fiscal impact is estimated approximately $1 million loss per fiscal year beginning in fiscal year 2022. Administration looks forward to working with the committee on the bill. Representatives from MRS will be here for the work session to provide additional information and respond in detail to the committee's questions. Be happy to take any questions you have at this time.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Allen. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Allen. I will ask the question that I was going to ask Mr. Norbert and Representative Sachs did. Has there been a decrease that you're aware of? And if you are not aware of it right now, can you pull us up for the work session, a decrease in the amount of contributions that have been made since, I guess, prior to 2017, if there's been a decrease in the program, as far as you can tell anyway?
We don't have access to that data, obviously. The deduction no longer exists at the federal level. Although I believe FAME testified a year ago when a similar bill was before the committee that they hadn't seen any change in activity in their program since the repeal of the previous deduction.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Question from Representative Sachs.
Following up on that, because clearly Representative Terry and I are on the same wavelength today. You stated in your testimony that there was no evidence that there was a decrease in utilization of the program once the tax credit was eliminated, which was my question to Mr. Norbert. So you have some data to support that, or some additional discussion about that, about how you arrived at that?
Yes, because again, last year, for a similar bill that was before the committee, that direct question was asked, I believe, by the Chairman Tipping to FAME, and I thought they had, it's my recollection that they said that they had not seen any change in participation in the state's 529 plans.
Great, thank you.
The previous deduction was only $250 per beneficiary, which meant that you had a tax benefit of approximately $17. So again, just looking at the tax incentive that even a $1,000 maximum benefit will provide at $71.50. The question is, does that incentivize somebody to contribute? And obviously, if you're in a lower tax bracket, that tax savings is even smaller.
Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Dr. Allen, for being with us.
Thank you.
So I guess that concludes the testimony on LD 23. So we'll close the public hearing on that bill, and we have two bills left to hear public hearing on, LD 435 and LD 611. Avery, is either Representative Pickett and or Representative Rudnicki with us today?
They're both on.
Okay. So I think we had announced we were going to hear LD 611 as our sixth.
Okay.
Bill. Why don't we go ahead and hear that bill from Representative Rudnicki? Open the public hearing on LD 611, and after she introduces the bill, we'll hear from Phil Roy to speak in favor. Well, welcome, Representative Rudnicki. Representative Rudnicki, you with us?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead and introduce LD 611 to us, if you would.
Thank you. So good morning, Senator Chipman, Representative Libby, and distinguished members of the Taxation Committee. I am Representative Shelley Rudnicki. I represent House District 108, which is Fairfield, Mercer, and Smithfield. I'm here today to actually introduce LD 611, an act to exempt long-term lodging from the 9% sales tax on lodging. Due to an error, I have an amendment that you should have in your inbox already. It simply crosses out under letter C in order to work during the summer season. I'm sure, like myself, you either have family or friends that are seasonal campers. Many use these as their second home. Seasonal campers seem to be taxed and taxed. Seasonal campers must pay the sales tax when they buy their camper. They also pay excise tax and registration fees every year. When someone then takes that camper and puts it on a seasonal lot at a campground, they are now required to pay lodging tax on that same camper that they've paid sales tax and excise tax for. We must also not forget that the landowner is paying property tax on this very land. That means that the land is actually being taxed twice, the landowner and the seasonal renter. The campgrounds pay higher property tax because they're taxed on the amenities they provide, like shore frontage, pools, buildings, playgrounds, and sites available. We don't charge people that rent an apartment lodging tax. We don't charge camp owners a lodging tax. Why should we charge seasonal campers that technically use these campers as their second home when it's a long-term site? That's where we're at with this. They're being taxed and taxed and taxed. And I think, to be fair, if they are a seasonal renter, which is more than 90 days, they should actually qualify to be exempt. I want to thank you for your time, and I urge you to support 611 as I've amended it. Thank you.
Thank you for introducing that bill to us. We have a question from Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today, Representative. And just two things. I can't read the bill and do Zoom at the same time. In fact, I don't have it in front of me. Did you say, I don't know if you misspoke or if I don't understand the rates anymore. Did you say 9% lodging tax? Is that where we are now?
I believe so, yes.
We are. I thought we were at 8. Oh, interesting. And I stayed at the Lakeview or Lakeside Motel last session, and they told me my first 4 weeks would be taxable as short term, and then after that, it would not be taxable, is what I believe I was told, and I didn't pay tax after my first 4 weeks. Is that different for campgrounds? Do you know?
It's my understanding that if it's for work, there is an exemption. But I'm not sure as far as specifically for campgrounds, but I do know that if it is for work, there is an exemption. So, and that's part of the bill. Under the bill, it's letter A. If a resident resides continuously for 28 days or more, there is that exemption for that, but it does not for these seasonal renters is really the the long-term part of that. It's for the seasonals. I mean, I'm sure like me, you have relatives or friends that do this type of thing here in Maine.
Sure, of course, yes. Thank you.
Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here to present the bill to us. We'll now hear from Phil Roy to speak in support, followed by Kathy Dyer to speak either for nor against. Is Phil Roy with us? Welcome, Mr. Roy.
Yes, I am. Senator Chapman, Representative Terry, and distinguished members of the Taxation Committee, thank you for taking the time to hear me today. My name is Philip Roy. My wife and I operate the Birches Lakeside Campground in Litchfield, Maine. Our campground operates 130 RV sites and 7 tent sites. Our time of operation is May 1st to October 15th each year. The campground can only operate for 6 months as our water system is all above ground and it starts to freeze in October. We service 95 to 100 seasonal sites each year. Seasonal sites is an RV at a campground or a tent that uses the site full season by a single family as their summer camp. Out of our seasonals, there are camping. 72 seasonals live there all year long during the season, full time. Seasonal sites allow many who are not in the financial position to buy land and erect a camp that can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Seasonal sites allow many to get out and enjoy the wildlife firsthand from hiking, fishing, bird watching, and many other outdoor recreations. We ask you to support LD 611 as amended to give long-term lodging seasonals that use of the seasonal site as a camp. The state doesn't levy lodging tax on people that own camps. So why would you continue leveling lodging tax on long-term seasonal sites? The state and town already receive their share of tax. The tax poses sales tax on the RV when it's sold. Then the town poses an excise tax on that retail value of the RV as if it was new on a sliding scale. If the unit is not registered, the town poses a personal property tax on that RV that sits on a seasonal site. The owner and operator of a campground also pays property tax, not just on the full land and the buildings, but also on every site that it operates. The RV lodging industry is taxed to death over and over and over again. An example of relief, the average seasonal site is approximately $2,800. At a 9% lodging tax, that's $252 that could be as tax relief. The $252 that someone that owns a camp, just like a seasonal site, doesn't have to pay. We should treat our long-term lodging just as like a camp. $252 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but to our seasonals that support local businesses, it can mean the difference from camping or staying home. During a time of uncertainty in this worldwide pandemic, this would bring true tax relief to the very people that can really use it. Camping is a true great way to get outdoors, allowing social distancing and keeping their families safe. We ask you to support LD 611 and give true tax relief to the very people that enjoy their RVs as a camp and treat them the same way you do as a camp. I take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. We have a question from Representative Bickford, followed by Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Roy. I'm pretty familiar with your campground on Cobsey Lake. I used to have a camper that I kept at a seasonal campground in Standish, and coming up with that money every year to pay to keep your camper on a site is not easy for a lot of people. It's actually pretty difficult in most cases. Adding, like you said, another $252 to that cost can make people decide maybe they're not going to rent a campsite for the season because that extra $252 is just too much. And I want to hear your comments on that, Mr. Roy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. You are 100% correct. We see a deterring as the tax rate continues to rise. Back when we started seasonal camping before we took over the campground, the rate was 5%, and now it's a staggering 9%. And people just can't sustain that, especially this year coming in a pandemic where everybody has been unemployed or barely scratching by, but yet they need a place to go. They need a place of relief. They need a place to relax with their family in a safe environment. And campgrounds give that safe environment. People have their own site, just like they have their own homes, and they're able to get out, relax, and spread their wings and enjoy the fresh air, from hiking to swimming to being enjoyable with their own family unit. That $252 to our seasonals sometimes makes or breaks the whole experience. And they struggle. They really struggle, and they've been struggling for years. And giving them some type of relief that you have at your fingertips right now will send a big message, not only to the industry, but to every Mainer that sits there and wonders if they're going to put their camp on a site this year. And thank you for your comments. And it is a wonderful campground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy.
Terry, followed by Representative Sachs. Go ahead, Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Roy, I'll put this question out to you, but it may be for main revenue at work session. Just curious how campgrounds fit into the bigger picture. Of course, we're struggling as a state and as municipalities with the home away and the Airbnb and such. And it seems like about 15 years ago, the state started, this was before the Airbnb and such, started taxing like camp rentals. There was 2 weeks would be exempt, and then after that it'd be taxable. And it was actually the industry, hotels and other, rentals that had to collect the sales tax who wanted individual renters to have to collect as well. They didn't like that disadvantage. So I'm curious about if I were to rent someone's camp on a lake for 3 months over the summer, would there be a tax? Would it be on the first 4 weeks? Would it be on the whole 3 months, or not at all? I just don't understand right now how the different pieces all fit together.
That's a very interesting question, Representative Perry. If it's a private rental, you will probably find that they are not paying any type of lodging tax and getting away with it. And it's an issue even to us as campgrounds is that they're not treated fairly as far as paying that tax. The exemption is any working, including in our campground. If anybody's coming to our campground and uses it as their base, as their office, and working from their unit, after 28 days, it is an exemption through this actual legislation, law, excuse me. But it is not captured. To your question directly, it's not captured. I don't believe, and I think you'll find, and Maine Revenue Service could probably even tell you better, that it's probably 90% not collected.
Excellent. We have a question from Representative Sachs, followed by Representative Terry.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping it's not the same question, Representative Terry, and I steal your thunder again. Thank you so much, Representative Wernicke and Mr. Roy, for being here today and presenting this bill. And this is for either of you, just to help me understand the scope. What is the vacancy rates of campgrounds? Is the intent of the bill to try and spur help people stay in campgrounds where it's currently not happening, and you feel that the tax is a deterrent? Is it more of a fairness issue? I'm just trying to sort of wrap my head around that. So either one be helpful to understand. Thank you.
We're just having questions for Mr. Roy at this point. Mr. Roy, do you have an answer to that question?
I do actually, and I really thank you for that question. I would love to have put that in part of my testimony. In the last 3 years, we have seen a flood of seasonals actually leave the state of Maine to go to New Hampshire and other states that aren't lodging such a horrendous 9% lodging tax on them. And so what you're asking is absolutely true. It will keep people here in Maine that aren't going to be paying, a lodging tax in other states. Just our campground alone has lost between 10 and 12 seasonals a year. And the majority of them are actually going out of state to become seasonals at other lakes in the New Hampshire region just to evade that $252. Now, that $252 doesn't sound like a lot of money, and the cost of actually going to New Hampshire, but it's everything else on top of that that they're paying taxes on that they look at the big picture. So that $252 is a catalyst to move to a different state. So by actually passing this type of legislation, I think you're going to have people move back to Maine and closer to their homes and be freer here in the state of Maine.
Representative Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This probably is a question for the to be answered for the work session, but I believe when we were talking about short-term rentals a couple minutes ago from Representative Perry, that those places are taxed, and they're taxed through the websites that you rent long or short-term places from. So if you were to say rent from Airbnb, when you paid your bill, you would get charged tax with that. And I believe that we did that a couple of years ago, but I'll just ask that the department or Julie bring that information to work session with us. Thank you.
We have another question from Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Roy. Part of your comments made me think of a new question. I think this is an issue you've been trying to solve for a very long time, because I remember listening to this bill, more than a decade ago. And I remember the comparison to New Hampshire, and it seemed like something came out in that public hearing that made Maine, where in the comparison, something came out in the works that leveled the playing field just a little bit. Do you know how campers, and I may have missed it in the testimony early, or do people pay property tax on campers here in Maine? And if they set up in New Hampshire, do they have to pay a property tax for that camper being in New Hampshire?
Representative Perry, if a camper is not registered and pays excise tax, the municipality has the obligation to assess a personal property tax. It's the same as property tax, but it's a personal property tax on that RV. And also, as an owner, we also pay the tax on the very land that they're leasing from. There's a difference between leasing a space and renting a space. And that's why I think that people misunderstand that a little bit, is that if I rent a space for a month or what have you, I can understand that let's pay the lodging tax. But if they're actually leasing a space, just like they lease a camp for a year, or they, lease what have you, a room from somebody, unless they're going through an Airbnb, and Representative Terry is 100% correct. If they're going through those third-party applications, they are paying tax. But in the majority of the time, and I can count at least a dozen just on the lake that we service that are just personal, and they're not paying tax on it. But to answer your question, as far as New Hampshire goes, I can't speak for New Hampshire on the property or personal property tax. I apologize.
That's all right. Can I just follow up? I think I understood what you said, because I know of a campground here nearby Bangor where people set up their campers year round. So if it's a long-term placement, or maybe I just have it at my house and I never take it on the road, I would likely be assessed a personal property tax, but would not have to register it. If I take it on the road and I pay an excise tax, I'm exempt from property tax. Or if I put it in the ground year round. Okay.
That is correct.
Right, and also just to clarify, Mr. Roy, if someone on the lake where you are or anywhere else in the state is renting for less than 30 days, a short-term rental is, I think, defined in law as less than 30 days, they do pay the lodging tax on that. Whether it's Airbnb or not Airbnb, it's still subjected to lodging tax if it's rented for less than 30 days in a short-term rental situation.
If it's used for work, yes, but you'll find that a lot of it is being circumvented and not being paid. And anything over 28 days is not subject to a lodging tax as long as it's being used for a base of work operation.
But if it's not being used for work and it's rented for, say, 14 days, that's a short-term rental, and that's still subjected to the lodging tax, correct?
Correct. And if it's actually being rented for 3 months, 4 months, it is still subject to a lodging tax.
Right. So nobody's able to circumvent the short-term rental, the lodging tax on short-term rentals. I thought you had said that you knew of a dozen around your area that were doing that, but they're not supposed to be doing that, and that's not
correct.
Allowed. Yeah. So that's just an enforcement issue, it seems like. Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here and offering your testimony to us today. We'll now hear from Kathy Dyer from the Maine Campground Owners Association, and then we will hear from Representative Pickett to introduce the final bill for us today. Is Kathy Dyer with us? Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me today. Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, members of the Committee on Taxation. My original testimony that I submitted on the original bill. So I testified neither for nor against. I have since changed my testimony to be in support of this LD 611 as currently amended. I think Phil Roy, let me first tell you who we are. I am Kathy Dyer, the Executive Director for the Maine Campground Owners Association. We represent the private and public campgrounds and RV parks in the state of Maine. We currently have in our membership 181 parks that are associated with the association. I think what Phil said, he touched on about everything that I had amended my testimony, which was previously submitted. What I would like to add to Phil's testimony is a couple of things. You talked a little bit about the vacancy rate and whether or not this was a dollar amount or fairness. I believe that this is also a dollar amount and fairness because of the number of taxes that these guys are actually getting taxed on. As Phil said, it's 2, 3, 4, maybe even more sets of taxes that between the guests and the campground owner are having to pay. What I'd like to add to Phil's is a couple of things just for food for thought. These folks are they've purchased, these are homes. These are sleeping quarters that they are providing for themselves. They're coming to a campground and they are utilizing the sites. I believe that that is a service. I don't believe that that should be included as lodging tax. So I guess I would ask this committee to take a look at it from that angle, you know, and sort of take a relook. The other thing that I'd like the committee to take a look at is there's about 60% of Maine residents that are here in Maine that are seasonal. So again, they're already paying property tax on their property. So it's just, it's an abundance of, it feels like these same people getting taxed over and over again for doing one specific thing, camping.
Excellent. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Ms. Dyer? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony and thank you for clarifying that you're speaking in favor of the bill with the amendment that's been proposed. We don't have anybody else signed up to speak in favor, and there's nobody signed up to speak in opposition, and there's nobody signed up to speak neither for nor against. We'll now close the public hearing on LD 611, and we will open up the public hearing on our final bill this morning. That's sponsored by Representative Pickett, LD 435. And following his introduction of the bill, we'll hear from Andrew Carlton to speak in support. Welcome, Representative Pickett.
Good morning, Senator Chipman and Representative Terry, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. I'm a state representative, Dick Pickett. I represent House District 116 in Oxford County. I'm here today to introduce and speak in support of LD 435, an act to provide a sales and use tax exemption for certain educational collaboratives. As outlined in the bill summary, this bill provides a sales use tax exemption for an incorporated nonprofit collaborative whose members are regional school units and that is organized to assist those units with professional development opportunities and services. The Western Maine Education Collaborative, known as WMEC, is comprised of 17 school districts throughout Western Maine and is governed by a board of directors with one representative from each of the member districts. The board determines membership fees on a yearly basis. For the past several years, the membership rate has been $4 per pupil. An additional professional development fee of $500 for districts with less than 500 students and $1,000 for districts with more than 500 students is also charged. For all intents and purposes, the Western Maine Education Collaborative serves as an extension of the school districts. Districts choosing to collaborate through the WMEC are pooling their resources in order to reduce costs for shared professional development opportunities and services. I assume there will be others following me who will speak in support of this bill and answer any questions you may have onto more detail how the WMEC works and explain how it has already saved taxpayer dollars. Thank you, and I would be glad to answer any questions that I have knowledge of at this time.
Great, thank you, Representative Pickett, for introducing that bill. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Representative Terry.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Representative Pickett, for bringing this to us. So I just want to make sure that I have this right. This is a school collaborative. These are all schools, and I'm wondering how they're not already exempt from this sales tax.
That's the question, Representative, that they're kind of wondering themselves.
So,
and I'm sure they'll speak to that.
Yeah, and everybody in these collaboratives are school-based organizations, I guess I should say.
The 17 school districts, they all are, yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll ask the next person too, but maybe if you know already, has there been issues with this already where folks are trying to use a sales tax exemption number and it's not working for them? Is that the case?
Not to my knowledge. I think there was an inquiry once into sales tax exemption, but there was no follow-up with it. This is the first time that they've moved it forward.
Okay, all right, terrific. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Members of the committee. Seeing none, thank you for presenting that bill to us. We'll now hear from Andrew Carlton, followed by Victoria Wallach. Is Mr. Carlton with us?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. I am Andrew Carlton, Superintendent of Schools in Regional School Unit Number 4, and the President of the Western Maine Educational Collaborative. I'm providing testimony today in support of LD 435 on behalf of the Western Maine Educational Collaborative members. The WMEC is a 501c3 nonprofit educational organization made up of 17 school districts who are committed to working together to positively influence student performance. Our membership includes Andover School Department, Eustis School Department, Fayette School Department, Lisbon School Department, SAD 13, SAD 59, RSU 4, RSU 9, RSU 10, RSU 38, RSU 44, RSU 56, RSU 58, RSU 73, RSU 74, RSU 78, and the Winthrop School Department. We pool our resources together to provide shared professional development opportunities and programming that would be difficult and too costly to do on our own as individual systems. Combined, our 17 districts serve over 14,000 students and 2,000 educators in over 50 schools throughout Western Maine. The WMEC is an extension of our local school districts. Each district contributes membership dues for shared professional services at a cost savings to participating districts. However, under current statutory language, WMEC is not eligible to apply for a Maine state sales tax exemption, even though we are a collection of schools. In a typical year, the WMEC pays $1,500 or less in Maine state sales tax, a dollar amount that would essentially have very little negative impact on the state of Maine sales tax revenue, but would certainly have a positive impact on the opportunities the WMEC is able to provide to educators. On behalf of all members of the WMEC, I ask the committee to support LD 435, and we would be happy to provide any additional information or respond to any questions that you have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Representative Terry.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Carlton, for coming to see us today. So I will ask the same question that I asked of Representative Pickett. Is there a specific issue that you guys have come up against that's brought this to us?
Yeah, so we've applied to be tax exempt, and because of the way we're formulated as a group of school districts under the collaborative as a 501c3, we're not eligible to have sales tax exemption in the state of Maine. Other collaboratives exist under a single school or a single university system. We do not, and so because of that, we are not eligible.
So, and if you were to say purchase a computer system, is the check being written by the collaborative or is it being written by one specific school?
It's being written through it. A school acts as a fiscal agent, but we are not writing through the school. The WMEC has its own tax ID number.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Carlton. So the last person we have listed to speak on this bill is in support from Victoria Wallach. Is Victoria Wallach with us?
She doesn't appear to be on.
Okay, so we don't have her with us to speak. And we don't have anybody sign up to speak in opposition or neither for nor against. So with that, we will close the public hearing on LD 435, which concludes all of our public hearings on the 8 bills this morning. Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to reiterate, I think it's become a habit, to make sure, please, that committee members go through and read the testimony on the website. There's a lot of really great information and thoughts that we haven't seen in the public hearing, but definitely will be important to look at through our work session. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And of course, to remind everybody once again to check your email from Julie from this morning about next week's updated schedule.
Yes. If there's anybody that wasn't with us, we've changed some things next week to accommodate a session at the Civic Center on Tuesday. We'll be having work sessions on Monday and Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock and public hearings on Friday at 9 o'clock. So with that, I don't think there's anything. Do you have anything for us, Julie, that we should know about?
I'll only just mention that I think there were 2 bills this morning that the sponsors brought, proposed committee amendments. I emailed them to you during the meeting. They will also be posted on the committee materials website later today, probably.
Awesome, thanks, Julie.
Great, thank you for that. Well, seeing that there's nothing else we need to discuss or announce, I will close the committee meeting today at the Committee on Taxation, and we'll see everyone tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for work sessions.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye, everyone.